For this week, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to explain such a large subject as assholes. Um, I brought it up last week, and I thought, you know what, we need to go into this a little bit more. Also, I was unable to make a meeting that I needed to go to, so I couldn't talk about the subject I wanted to. So here we are. We're going to talk a little bit more about the equations and the systems that we find within assholes. Only how it applies to video games in a non-evil way. Remember, all things can be sticks. Just because you use it for evil doesn't mean that it in and of itself is evil. So we're going to talk about fandom and how it slowly grows as the first lecture. And I apologize for getting everything late. If you're watching this later, you didn't know it was late, but I actually posted all of these in the same day. And the reason why is it just took me all week to figure out how to explain such a complex subject in as little as I could. So if I screw up, it's because I gave you too much information, and I apologize for that. But here we go. Let's start off with whether or not you like a subject. That's, once again, CP over CNA. Simple system. Do you have a connection to it? What is your power? What is the feeling of power within that subject? Over your disconnect over the subject and your acceptance of this disconnect. Simple enough. And when we go into systems, we find that we like them more and more. Or how do I say this? I just realized how do I say this a lot, and I'm probably going to say it a lot more today. The reality is, we have things that we... Oh, hey, Dave. Thanks. Go away. Okay, just because our liking something is about the same doesn't mean that our passion for it is the same. So you'll notice that 2 times 2 over 1 over 4, 1 times 4 is the same as 4 times 4 over 4 times 4. But if we were being honest, that takes up more energy, more passion to get to it. And, you know, the closer you get to the center, the more you are affected by this subject, and the more it affects, or, you know, the more you are into it, the more passion you have towards it. So the more you push towards it, the more likely it will affect you. And this sounds kind of weird, but you'll find that this doesn't happen all at once. You don't suddenly go, okay, I'm going to start dressing up now because I really like this subject. You go, you know, I like this subject. And then you slowly go, okay, well, you know, I like this subject enough that I'm going to start dressing up for it. Okay, I'm going to, you know, dress up for it, you know, at this show, and that's all I'm going to do, and it's going to be a small costume. And, you know, we talked about it in the cosplay thing. Well, the liking of the subject slowly grows until you're ready to just wear the costume the entire time, and it's no longer a costume, it's just what you wear, and that's how it happens. It's a very slow process. It is not a fast process as people imagine it. Here we have an average shot of a convention. This is just people playing some board games, and you'll notice there is one person that is dressed up, and really all that it is hair. She wore some nice hair, and that's it. Everybody else is, for the most part, wearing average clothes. There are a couple t-shirts there. Guy on far left has a t-shirt, and I think there's another guy up and to the left with the yellow beanie that he might be in costume as well. I don't know. I can't tell from this picture. But, and I'm the one who took it. But they are all just as devoted to this convention as everyone else. Just some are a little bit more devoted. And it takes a lot of acceptance and work to create these costumes. The guy on the right was actually at the ferry station waiting to get onto the ferry in costume. He actually wore it the entire time we were there, which was interesting. He eventually took it off so that he could just see and hang out. But yeah, he was ready to be in character the entire time. And he couldn't do that, and yet he wasn't like that right at the start. Instead, he started with, you know, okay, I'm going to show my feelers. I'm going to do this a little bit. I'm going to do this a little bit. There was a very large amount of, disconnect from the subject and the acceptance that, no, I'm not going to let this happen. So he didn't really get into it until he found that he liked it, or he had a moment. And that brings us into brain control systems, and this is an equation you see over how you think at any given moment. And the truth is, we are allowed so many points or so much concentration in our day-to-day activities. So let's say you had 2,000 points you needed to use up, and your mind will actually put it into, will put everything as much as it can into reflexes, so then you can take anything you're concentrating on more, or it can take more stuff. So the equation goes priority or conscious thought. So whatever you're consciously thinking about is the P. The R is reflex or unconscious thought. Anything that you've taught yourself to do without thinking about it anymore. It's now, okay, enter this process. If you're a programmer, it's, you've created this little process and then you just mention it in your program. You're like, okay, bring in this and do this. If you've watched a baby try to walk, they walk really weird as if, every step is this new interesting experience and they don't know what they're doing. It's because it is. Now watch somebody who's been walking their entire life and, they're not even thinking about it. They're like, oh, yeah, looking around. Whoa, that's pretty cool. And then we have the stresses, the emotional stress, the anxiety, and the unconscious stress. So emotional stress is, how many people are around you? How weird do you feel at this moment? And then, you have anxiety. What are the things you're worried about? Consciously thinking about, like, oh, I've got to do work. I've got to take care of this. Oh man, this is a problem. And then there's unconscious stress. It's cold. And although your mind has put it to the back end, it has in fact affected your body in a way that is taking up points from you. Then you have health. And that's all over health and emotional joy. Emotional joy actually gives us extra ability to concentrate. If you have an emotional, joyful moment, your mind kind of refills a little, and you kind of remember that moment a lot more. And then, your health, it's as simple as that. The better your health is, the more you're capable of taking care of the situation that you have. So, if you're in bad health, you're going to be having difficulties making decisions. So, in our day-to-day activities, you're allowed like 2,000, I'm just saying this here, 2,000, concentration points, and you're basically trying to keep it all in reflex until you get to a major moment where you actually have to make a decision, and your brain actually has to go through this process to go into the decision making. So let's talk about it. At some point, there's going to be just this kind of rise or this emotional moment, and because of that, it creates kind of a memory for you. It could be a good emotion, it can be a bad emotion. You could like the moment, you could not like the moment, but if you get this little rise, you've gone through flow, and you're like, okay, yeah, and then you get this rise, like, oh, hey, that was fun. So you go to a convention, and you see people dressed up, and people start noticing your T-shirt that you wore, and you're like, oh yeah, that people liked my T-shirt. Maybe I could carry a sword. One of those plastic swords. Yeah, nothing big, just a plastic sword. That would be cool. And without thinking about it, it just rises a little bit. Although the flow stays normal, your liking of the subject kind of rises a little bit because you have this distinct memory of people liking your shirt. And this little rise, this little dopamine addition helps you out. And so it becomes this slow process where your normal slowly changes over time. Once again, look, the majority of the people are wearing normal clothes. Well, except the guy on the far left, those are really short shorts. He should think better. Anyway, but then you have these people dressed in their clothes, and they all dressed to be kind of a group, and they all feel like they're part of their group, and that this is an acceptable thing, and they are completely ordinary with it. Their minds are no longer on the fact that they're dressed up. They're thinking, oh, cool. I'm really into this subject. Look at, I'm getting this rise because people want to take my picture. I'm getting, recognized, and it's a person I respect or I like a lot. So you feel kind of this connection with this character. And because of that, you don't even realize, over the years that it took for you to become this way. You didn't just start off going, yeah, I'm going to dress up. You consciously had things happen to push you towards this. Now, most crime is like this. Most people don't wake up in the morning going, I am going to do evil today. Instead, that particular moment, they got distracted. The reflex wasn't wasn't correct. Their health was down. They were dealing with a lot of stress. All those things that would normally be okay just kind of hit them at the wrong moment, and they made a wrong decision. Could they make the wrong decision again? Yes, actually. Since it's a slow process, they may not have recognized the mistakes they were making. Within driving, I've got friends who teach driving students, and they say one of the biggest problems they have is people who have been driving badly for 20, 30 years, and they finally get a ticket, and they're like, I've been driving for 20, 30 years. I know more about driving than anybody else here. How on earth could I get a ticket? And the answer is, because they never had a problem, they never were able to fix their mistake, and the mistake eventually hit them. And the truth is, we all make mistakes. We all commit crimes. We all screw up. It's what we do with it and how severe the crime is. My first week with my driver's license, I took a turn a little too sharply. And the truth is, I also got hit by another car coming into my lane. And I freaked out and went into traffic. And, I was so devastated. I didn't drive for 4 years after that. I was so scared. And, it was just so frightening to me because I screwed up. But the reality was I just made a small mistake. But that mistake created this huge damaging thing. And the same way that, I was able to drive, I was able to do things, and I kept everything in flow, I didn't recognize where the mistake was. I only thought, okay, I've already made this turn before, I therefore can make this turn anytime I want to, what I really shouldn't have. And, because I've put it all into reflex, I haven't been giving priority to my driving skill as well as I should, or I haven't turned my reflexes into the correct reflexes, and I haven't recognized that. And to be honest with you, I was late for school. My class was at the college, and I was going to my high school class, and I was late, and I was going a little bit faster than I should have, and yeah, I ended up getting into a crash. And, I got a ticket, and that was a crime that I committed. And that's the thing. Most crimes that we commit are something like this, where, you just don't check yourself, where you don't look for those things. And, some of these crimes can be very, very severe. When I started into this study, the reason why I wrote the equation you're looking at right now is we had an incident here at Cheney, Eastern Washington University, where a teacher was doing things where he was stalking students, and everybody's just like, why is he doing this? What led him to do this? And I finally realized he probably never thought that he was doing evil because it was such a slow process. He didn't recognize it. Hey, Scott. Yeah. And that's kind of how it happens, is the majority of our crimes are like that, where in our minds, everything's okay because everything is okay. And, we've put all of our mistakes into kind of a reflex. We haven't thought, maybe I need to check this. Maybe I need to take care of this. Because in our minds, there's nothing bad happening. Obviously, there must be some kind of mistake. But no, you didn't check yourself. You didn't, for lack of better words, repent. And you screwed up. And this teacher screwed up badly. He was kicked out of the school, to give you an idea. I'm not going to get into any details. In fact, I made sure when I wrote the paper on the matter to not use that. And another thing that can happen is you're put in a situation where you don't have any real response. So you use the reflexes you have, and those reflexes are bad. So out of every 1,000 people that go to a haunted maze, you're going there to be scared, but one of those people will be so scared he or she will reflexively do something they shouldn't. And they're very rare, but I have heard stories of people, just without thinking about it, punch one of the people coming at them with a chainsaw. And that's a good reflex. In any other situation, that was a good reflex. But in that situation, they were doing the wrong thing. And that's a fascinating subject, but also one that we have to be really careful with. But that's the thing is, you're putting it in a situation, you think your reflexes are going to take care of it, and they don't, because you either haven't checked them correctly, or you didn't know it was there. And so that's where most of our crime comes from. And, it would be hard to regulate doing something like this because, let's be honest, not only does this cause, crime, it also causes good things. People slowly figuring out cool things. Writing comes from, those same situations. Video games specifically try to get you into flow. That's why people look kind of zombie-like when they're playing video games, is they've taken everything out of their mind and they're focused on that video game. They have entered flow. And, video game creators, they work really hard to get you into the flow and into that game. But that's for the next subject that we're going to talk about, which is called let's look at the recruiter. You'll understand it better in the next video. Catch you later.